Hi, welcome to the second part of our video lessons. So actually, this is the third in the uploaded videos, but this is the second part because this is the second half. Okay, so this one is going to be again culture and society, but now we are going to include Filipino culture and Filipino personhood. Okay, so to start our discussion, let's have modes of acquiring culture. I'm really sorry if you cannot see this word, but this is modes of acquiring culture. You can check this out in your module. So we have four modes of acquiring culture. We have number one, imitation, number two, formal, number three, informal teaching. So formal is formal teaching. So number three, informal teaching, and number four, conditioning. Okay, so let's explain these four. So when we say imitation, from the word itself, imitation. So this is you are going to imitate the actions, or you are going to imitate um, manners, beliefs, behaviors according to the things that you see from other people. So in this case, you are going to acquire culture, or you are going to learn culture through imitation. So this one is not being taught to you. You just see them, or you just observe them, and then you acquire culture by looking at them and by imitating them. Next is formal. So formal teaching is when you learn culture by going to school, and these things are taught to you by your teachers as prescribed by the curriculum. So these things about culture, you learn culture about reading, you learn about culture by reading books, by participating in the class discussions, as being discussed by your teacher. So parang ito napapanood natin sa school, natututunan natin kasi tinuturo sa atin. So halimbawa yung mga facts about other countries, so nalalaman natin siya through school. So tinuturo sa atin ni teacher, o kaya yung mga facts about our society, yung mga manners natin, right conduct sa ating GMRC, or sa ating ESP, or edukasyon sa pagpapakatao, yung mga yon natututunan natin siya through formal teaching. So, ibig sabihin, ito, na-acquire natin yung culture, or we learn our culture because this is being taught in schools and it is prescribed by our curriculum. What about informal teaching? So, when we say informal teaching, these things are what you learn by just listening to what your peers say, or listening to what your elders say, or what your friends say. So makikita natin dito, or we learn culture, we acquire culture because it is being taught to us not by our teachers, not by the books from our schools. This one, we learn culture, we acquire culture because it is being taught to us by our age group, by our peers or friends, our family members, our elders in the society, or basta outside school tapos tinuturo sa inyo. So mamaya may examples tayo niyan. Next is we have conditioning. So if you are familiar with psychology, pag sinabi nating conditioning, ito ay parang tinitrain kayo to think like that, or may dalawa kayong stimuli, and then kapag nakita nyo tong stimulus na to, automatically magkakaroon kayo ng reaction. So, magkakaroon kayo ng another stimuli in response to the previous stimuli. So, ibig sabihin, kayo ay na-train, or kayo ay na-condition na kapag nakita nyo tong bagay na to, ito na kagad yung kasunod, or ito yung magiging result, or ito yung magiging consequence. So, you acquire culture by training or by conditioning. So, magbibigay tayo ng examples later on. So, the first one is we have imitation. So for imitation, again, this is not being taught to you. It's just that you are observing them, you are imitating them. That's why come through time, you learned, or you acquired about this, or you acquired culture through this. So example, here in the Philippines, when we are trying to point things, we sometimes use our index finger, yung hintuturo natin to point things, but sometimes it's considered as rude. That's why usually Filipinos, very unique din sa Filipinos, kadalasan is we point using our lips. So, halimbawa, nasan yung remote? Nandun, ganyan. So, gaganyan kayo. Ngayon, yung kadalasan yon hindi naman tinuturo sa atin, hindi naman tinuturo sa atin sa school yon, na sa curriculum, mababasa natin sa libro na Ginagamit yung nguso, okay? So, ito ay kadalasan na naiintindihan ng mga bata or nage-gets ng mga bata, na-acquire ng mga bata because yung ginagawa ng mga matatanda ay gano'n. So, through observation, nage-gets nila yon or nakukuha nila. What else? Yung pagsit-set, yung psst, ganyan. Hindi naman siya tinuturo sa atin na, okay, yung labi mo, igaganyan mo, tapos yung hangin palalabasin mo sa ngipin, psst, ganyan, psst, ganyan. Hindi naman tinuturo sa atin ng gano'n 'yun, eh. So, paano natin siya natututunan? Kasi nakikita natin at naririnig natin. So, sometimes, 'di ba, children, when we are playing with our nieces, with our nephews, minsan sinisisita natin sila tapos magugulat na lang tayo na marunong na rin sila. So, ayun din. What else? Yung paninitset ng mga lalaki sa mga babae like catcalling. So, yung mga bata, hindi naman tinuturo sa kanila yun eh. Nakikita lang nila yun sa mga nakakatanda sa kanila. Kaya, sometimes, they don't know the weight of what they are doing, pero naninitset na rin sila ng mga tao because they think that it's cool just because they are trying to imitate other people around them, okay? And then, what else? Yung pagbelat, yung ganyan. So, yung mga baby, minsan, 'di ba, 'pag ginaganyan natin sila, they don't understand what is the connotation of this gesture. They are just imitating us. Now, through imitation, they would understand that this symbol or this gesture means na parang inaasar sila. Okay? So, in that way, na-acquire nila yung culture or yung meanings through imitation. So again, pag sinabi nating imitation, this one is not being taught to you, but rather because of you observing their actions and their gestures, you get the meaning of the gesture or of the symbol. Okay, so you call that as imitation. Next is we have formal teaching. Okay, so formal teaching, this one is being taught to us in schools. It is prescribed by the curriculum. So, hindi lang na siya isang bagay na natututunan natin sa school. Ito talaga ay, kumbaga, nafo-form natin sa schools. Okay, so formal teaching, for example, falling in line. Kadalasan yung falling in line, natututunan lang ng mga bata sa school, okay? Especially for those people na hindi naman talaga sila galing sa well-off family. For example, yung mga mahihirap, okay? So yung falling in line kapag sila ay nag-elementary, doon lang sila natuturuan ng falling in line. Kasi pag nasa bahay naman sila, halimbawa, nasa bahay lang naman sila, pagkakakain naman sila ng tanghalian, di naman sila pinapa-fall in line ng magulang nila eh. So, kadalasan yung falling in line concept, natututunan lang ito ng mga bata sa preschools, okay? Kapag sila ay tinuturuan ni teacher na kapag flag ceremony, um, tawag nito, arms forward, arms sideward, ganyan. So, fall in line. What else? Kapag magre-recess sila, fall in line. So, parang doon nila nagigets yung concept of falling in line, which is also a part of our culture wherein it shows na you have to show courtesy to other people who are also availing the certain goods na meron. So, hindi pwede na ano na sisingit ka sa pila because that's rude. Okay? So, dun siya tinuturo sa school. What else? Pagsasabi ng good morning when you are trying to greet, and good morning as a sign of respect. Okay? So, when we are in schools, our teachers, our head teachers, kapag magsi-speech sila, especially in elementary schools, eto, sinasabi talaga sa kanila na you have to properly greet your teacher, good morning. Pagpapasok ng classroom, parang may uniform na sasabihin, good morning teacher, good morning classmates. Pinapakabisado sa kanila yon. Now, pag nasa bahay kayo, hindi naman, though minsan may mga magulang na nagsasabi ng good morning or mga bata na tinuturoan magsabi ng good morning, pero kadalasan sa mga bata, tsaka lang nila nag-grasp yung concept na pagsasabi ng good morning kapag natutunan na nila yon sa school. Kasi sa bahay, hindi naman sila yung pagkagising nila, "Good morning mommy, good morning daddy." Kasi hindi siya typical sa pamilyang Pilipino. Kadalasan ng mga pamilya ay, pagkagising nila yung magulang nila nagtrabaho na or paalis na papuntang trabaho. Kaya hindi siya kadalasan natututunan sa bahay. Talagang yung uniform na pagsasabi ng good morning as a sign of respect, ito ay itinuturo sa school. So, kailangan lang natin tandaan when we say formal teaching, this is a mode of acquiring culture, understanding culture, by learning it from schools and from learning by learning it from books that are prescribed by the curriculum. Next is we have informal teaching. So when we say informal teaching, these are lessons, or this is a mode of acquiring culture wherein we learn it from the elders of our society, by elder members of our family, by from our friends, from age groups, or from sa mga kung sino man yung pwede nating um, kung kanino man tayo puwedeng magpaturo kapagka nasa labas na tayo ng school. Halimbawa, sa lolo't lola natin, ayan, yung pagmamano, although tinuturo din naman siya sa school, pero madalas nauuna siyang ituro sa bahay, okay? What else? Yung rules ng mga laro, 'di ba? Hindi naman tinuturo 'yan sa school, eh, kung ano yung rules na anong tamang paghawak ng trumpo, hindi naman siya ini-introduce, okey? Hindi naman teacher yung magtuturo sa'yo niyan. Kadalasan yung mga laro, yung mga larong Pinoy, siyempre yung mga laro sa daan, yung mga trumpo, pogs, text, okey? Yung mga yon parte ng kultura natin yon kasi yun ay mga laro ng mga batang Pilipino, eh. Pero sino nagtuturo nun? Kadalasan yung mga kaibigan natin sa labas ng school, or kung kaklase man natin, at least 'pag nasa labas na tayo ng school or 'pag tapos na yung lessons natin sa school, tuturuan tayo ng mga kaibigan natin nun, okay? So 'pag sinabi nating informal teaching, again, hindi siya kaya nga siya hindi siya formal, eh, kasi hindi natin siya pinag-aaralan talaga. Hindi siya pinag-aaralan sa libro, hindi siya kasama sa lesson plan ni teacher para ituro sa inyo. 'Pag sinabi nating informal teaching, anyone outside, school, or anyone na hindi naman teacher, anyone naman na, hindi kumbaga related sa curriculum, ay puwedeng magturo sa inyo, kaya siya informal teaching. Tindera, puwede kayong turuan, mga kaibigan ninyo, mga ate kuya ninyo, puwede, okey? So, yun nga, isang example niya ay yung mga laro. Eto, hindi naman si teacher ang nagtuturo sa inyo kung paano maglaro ng piko. Kadalasan ito ay tinuturo sa inyo ng inyong mga kaibigan or mga barkada, okay? So, informal teaching po yung mga gano'n. Next is we have conditioning. So, for this one, ito yung sinasabi ko na you are like sort of being trained, or you are conditioned that when you see this, automatically you will hear, or you will realize this, okay? Say for example, here in the Philippines, kapag narinig natin yung kalembang ng yung gano'n, yung bell na maliit, 'pag narinig natin yung kalembang niya, we would immediately think of, okay, sorbetes. Kung hindi sorbetes, binatog, okay? So kumbaga nakakondisyon sa isip natin na 'pag narinig natin yung tunog na yun, "Ay, tunog ng ano, ng bell, siguro may ice cream." O kaya sabihin niyo, "Ay, siguro may nagtitinda ng binatog." Okay? So yun yung ibig sabihin natin ng conditioning. So we learn aspects of our culture or our society by conditioning. So we immediately learn that through this stimulus, we associate another stimulus as a result or a consequence. Another fact, just to highlight our culture from the Philippines, pag narinig na natin yung kumukulog, kumikidlat na, tapos medyo umaambon-ambon na, tapos mukhang malakas yung ulan na susunod, medyo gray na yung, madilim na yung paligid, yung mga bata, automatic na yan. Sasabihin na, "Ma, uulan, ligo ako." Ganyan. Okay? So, ibig sabihin nun, nakakondisyon na sa isip nila na kapag uulan, maliligo yung mga ibang bata, yung mga kalaro nila. Kaya gusto na rin nilang maligo. Kumbaga, sa ano natin, sa kultura natin sa Pilipinas, we are conditioned as kids that when it's raining outside, it is time to play under the rain. So, ganun yon. But during or in the Western culture or in the Western setting, when they see na uulan na, pinapapasok na sila sa loob ng bahay because it's a sad day, they cannot continue their activities because it's raining. So, sa kanila naman, kapag ka ulan na, 'pag malapit na yung ulan, ibig sabihin it's time to go inside the house na. Okay? So, it's different from our culture. Kasi in our culture, children are happy because they are conditioned that when it's raining, it's time to play. But for children in the Western culture, kapagka it's raining na outside or if it's gonna rain, they have to go inside because it's time to be safe inside the house. Okay, so yung tinatawag nating conditioning. So these are the four modes of acquiring culture. Again, imitation, formal teaching, informal teaching, and conditioning. Next, functions of culture. Now, to explain, culture has different functions. So these explain how culture works in our society. Why is it important in our society? So number one, first function of culture is culture provides behavioral patterns. Okay, so unlike other animals, he has ready-made set of patterns awaiting him which he needs only to learn and follow. His group has so defined every situation that facilitates adjustments. So according to the first function, ang unang function or unang pakinabang use ng culture is meron na tayong nagpo-provide siya ng behavioral patterns. Kumbaga, meron na tayong mga actions na pag may certain situations, ito na yung kailangan lang natin siyang sundin or kailangan lang natin siyang gawin. So ibig sabihin, yung kultura natin parang hinuhubog niya tayo para alam natin yung gagawin natin kapag napaharap tayo sa isang sitwasyon. Kaya naapektuhan niya yung kilos na gagawin natin. Halimbawa, alam natin sa kultura natin sa Pilipinas sa kultura natin sa Pilipinas, alam natin na kapag merong matanda or meron na tayong mas matanda sa atin tapos nasa reunion tayo, kailangan nating magmano. Bakit? Kasi nga, nakaset na yung behavioral pattern natin. Yun yung pattern ng every Filipino. Kapag may nakita tayong mas matanda sa atin sa reunion, tito, auntie, lola, lolo, matik na yon, kailangan magmamano. Ano pang isa pang example? Kapag tayo ay papasok ng bahay. Pag papasok tayo ng bahay, alam na kagad natin bago tayo pumasok ng bahay, huhubarin muna natin yung sapatos or yung tsinelas. Okay? So, hindi na yun mayat-maya na mayat-maya na kailangan ipaalala sa atin na, ay, kailangan kong hubarin yung sapatos ko, kailangan kong hubarin yung tsinelas ko. Automatic na yon, matic na yon na kapagka tayo ay pupunta sa isang bahay or papasok sa isang bahay, kailangan nating hubarin yung ating tsinelas. Bakit? Again, because culture provides behavioral pattern. Okay? So, sa bawat kultura, ang function ng culture ay mag-provide ng isang pattern na susundin na lang ng kanyang mga members. Pero, sa bawat pattern na nilalaan ng culture, meron din siyang pinoprovide na adjustments. Say for example, alam natin na bago tayo pumasok na isang bahay or isang establishment, we must remove our shoes. Pero meron din siyang exceptions. Halimbawa, papasok tayo sa mall, alam natin na hindi na natin kailangang hubarin yung ating sapatos. Or papasok tayo sa school, alam natin na hindi na natin kailangang hubarin yung ating sapatos. Ibig sabihin lang nun na, 'di ba, makikita natin, alam natin kung ano yung i-act natin in a certain situation. Yun yung sinasabi natin kanina na it provides behavioral patterns. We know how to adjust these patterns also. Okay? So alam natin kung ano yung mga susundan, parang may pattern na tayo kung ano yung mga actions na gagawin natin. Okay? So that's why it provides behavioral patterns. So dito makikita din natin, ito galing 'to sa Inquirer kung tama ang aking pagkakaalala. Itong dalawang tao na 'to, ito si kuya at saka yung kasama niya, they are Japanese people. Okay? So makikita natin dito yung light ay kulay red. Okay, so dito red light. What does a red light mean? Okay, so a red light means stop, of course. You should not walk on the pedestrian lane because it doesn't permit you to walk on the pedestrian lane because it tells you to stop because it's a red light. Pero makikita natin dito, ang mga Pilipino ay naglalakad pa rin kahit na red light na. Pero makikita natin yung dalawang Japanese person, sila ay patiently waiting for it to turn green before they cross the street. Okay, so ano yung makikita natin dito? Ang behavioral pattern nila sa Japan is kapag sinabing red light, bawal tumawid. Yun yung na-instill sa kanila na behavioral pattern na kailangan nilang sundin. Ngayon, kahit nasa ibang bansa na sila, nasa Pilipinas na sila, they are still following their behavioral pattern na in-instill sa kanila ng Japanese culture. Okay? So makikita natin yung kanilang behavioral pattern. Next, culture maintains the stability of the social system. Again, maintains the stability of the social system, meaning the act as the social glue. The culture acts as the social glue within a group and helps its members to be together through providing standards which direct them on how to act with one another. We just need to emphasize here maintains the stability of the social system. So this only means that they are trying to glue together people. Parang yung culture, meron siyang function or meron siyang use na yun to unite people together or to keep people together. Say for example, we have this yung sa SEA Games, 'di ba? Yung nalunod yung isang surfer, tapos yung Pilipino malapit na siyang manalo dun sa sa SEA Games dun sa surfing, pero nakita niya yung isang surfer na nasa panganib yung buhay kasi nga nalaglag siya dun sa surfboard niya. So instead na to pursue his goal, his dream na manalo, ang ginawa niya is ni-rescue niya yung kapwa niya na surfer kahit na competitor. Ngayon, nung tinanong siya kung bakit niya yung ginawa, ang sabi niya, parehas kaming Southeast Asian. So, ibig sabihin nun, he believes that they have the same culture because they are both Southeast Asians. And that is why makikita natin that they are glued together. So makikita natin doon yung pakikipagkapwa kung tatawagin natin. So meron siyang function na ilabas yung sense ng pakikipagkapwa ng mga tao dahil iisa sila ng kultura. Okay? So again, culture has this function to maintain the stability of the social system para to unite people para less yung conflicts between the members of the culture. What else? Ayan, example, bayanihan. Maintaining again social stability. So they are helping one another. They are being united. So another example is Disiplina Village, Bignay. So makikita natin nung nagkaroon ng bagyo, ay nagkaroon ng Taal eruption, nagkaroon sila ng mga donations. So makikita natin, 'di ba? Hindi naman nila kilala yung mga tao na sa Taal. Those are total strangers to them. Now, why are they helping these people? It's because they feel that these people are one of them. These people are their kapwa. So makikita natin doon yung culture, yung function ng culture to maintain social stability. Kasi ano mangyayari kapag hindi nagtulungan? Mangyayari, hayaan lang nila yung mga kababayan nila. Siyempre, hindi na stable yung society nun kasi may conflict. Pero dahil dun sa function ng culture na yon to maintain social stability, it acts as the social glue para ma-highlight yung pakikipagkapwa nila sa bawat isa. Okay? So, yun yung kanilang function. Next, culture gives meaning and direction. Sorry, direction yan. Culture gives meaning and direction to one's existence. So, culture has this function to give meaning and direction to one's existence. Na, kumbaga, yung culture na pinanggalingan niya, nai-inspire siya para magkaroon siya ng goal or para maka-arrive siya, ma-achieve niya yung goal na meron siya. Okay? So, yung culture niya, yung nagiging parang motivation niya to continue his goal, to pursue his goal, to give meaning and direction kung saan siya pupunta. So, si culture ang nagbibigay sa kanya ng motivation. So, mamaya example tayo ulit dyan. Number 4, culture facilitates the generation of commitment to something larger than one's individual interest. Dito naman, si culture, itong pagkakaiba nila, si number 3, si culture gives meaning and direction to one's existence. Siya ay nagbibigay ng motivation para magkaroon ng isang goal si tao or magkaroon ng motivation si tao na makomplete yung kanyang mission. Pero pag sinabi nating number 4, culture facilitates the generation of commitment to something larger than one's individual interest. Dito naman, si tao, meron siyang gustong gawin. Meron na siyang goal. Meron na siyang opportunities. Pero handa siyang iset aside itong mga opportunities na ito, handa siyang iset aside yung goal niya para i-pursue yung dinidikta sa kanya ni culture. Okay? So, Sabi nga dito, generation of commitment to something larger than one's individual interest. Halimbawa siya, ang original na goal niya is magpayaman. Gusto niya magpayaman talaga. Yun yung kanyang personal goal. Kaso nakita niya na itong mga bata sa mga barong-barong, sila ay, wala silang ano, wala silang paraan para makapag-aral ng mabuti kasi nga mahirap lang sila. Ngayon, ang ginawa nito ni tao, sinet aside niya yung goal niya na pagiging mayaman to help these children because he feels that these children are also Filipinos like him. So, anong nangyari? Sinet aside niya yung individual interest niya in order to help those people na kaisa niya ng kultura or ka-member niya ng kultura, okay? Ka-member ng kultura niya. So, makikita natin do'n, again, you commit to something you consider larger than your own interest. And number 5, culture develops man's attitudes and values and gives him a conscience. So, sabi nga natin, culture shapes who we are. So, according to the norms of the culture, syempre, do'n din magbabase yung ating conscience. Say, for example nga, kanina na-discuss natin or rather dun sa previous videos na-discuss natin na according to the norms, you should not have sex if you are not yet married. So, parang magkakaroon ka ng konsensya ngayon na hindi mo yon gagawin kasi parang nakokonsensya ka. But why? Because your culture told you ever since you were little that this is something that you should not do. So, halimbawa ikaw, may nagsabi sa'yo na yun nga gusto nilang makipag-sex, eh, hindi naman kayo kasal, so parang hindi ka papayag. Bakit? Kasi nga sa kultura niyo hindi gano'n, hindi gano'n yung kultura niyo. So you are what? You are a member of your culture and you are afraid to do something which is considered as wrong by your culture. That's why your conscience would tell you that this is wrong, okay? Or halimbawa kapagka, may issue ng divorce, so gusto ng asawa mo ay foreigner yung asawa mo, gusto na makipag-divorce ng asawa mo, eh, ikaw ayaw mo makipag-divorce kasi nga pinalaki ka dun sa culture na hindi solusyon ang divorce sa pag-away ng mag-asawa. So, parang gano'n. Again, your culture develops your attitude, your values, and gives you a conscience. So, let's have an example. Si Norman King, if you're familiar, he's the first Filipino AITA to graduate UP. Okay? So, siya yung unang-unang AITA na nakagraduate sa UP, UP Diliman. Ngayon, makikita natin, itong si Norman King, because of his experience, because he is an AITA, and AITAs are often being subjected to discrimination by people, it gave him a sense of direction kung ano yung dapat niyang gawin sa buhay niya. At ano yon? Ang gusto niya ngayon, patunayan na ang mga bashers na mga AITA, mga nagdi-discriminate sa AITA ay mali. Kasi nga tingin sa kanila mabababa or medyo hindi sila, kumbaga, hindi sila matalino kasi nga dahil sila ay galing sa probinsya at sa mga bundok. So, ang nangyari, si Norman King, it gave him a motivation, it gave him a meaning to his life, and it gave him a direction kung ano yung dapat niyang gawin. So, dahil siya ay nanggaling sa Aita culture, ang ginawa niya is, naging motivation niya yon para magkaroon ng direction sa buhay at makatapos sa pinaka-prestigious school na meron tayo dito sa Pilipinas. So, yun nga, kaya nakagraduate siya ng UP Diliman. So, yun yung naging kanyang direction. Ito yung tinatawag natin na culture gives meaning and direction to one's existence. Ngayon, paano naman mag apply itong number 4? So, culture facilitates the generation of commitment to something larger than one's own interest. So, si Norman King, dahil nga siya ay graduate ng UP Diliman, at alam naman natin, ang mga graduate ng UP Diliman ay di hamak na mas maraming opportunity sa trabaho compared sa mga ibang universities or sa mga local universities. Pag nakita kagad sa resume na UP Diliman graduate ka, parang ano yun advantage na kagad yun. So kung tutuusin, si Norman King, marami na siyang opportunities para sa trabaho. Kung gusto niya magpayaman, kaya niya magpayaman. Pero si Norman King, pinili niya na tulungan tong mga kapwa niya Aita. So again, culture facilitated a generation of commitment So, nag-commit siya ngayon na tulungan ang mga members ng kanyang AITA community or ng kanyang AITA culture. So, sinantabi niya ngayon yung mga opportunities na pwede niyang i-take kung gusto niya magpayaman para tulungan yung kanyang kultura at yung members ng kanyang kultura. So, yung tinatawag natin na commitment to something larger than one's individual interest. Okay? So, individual interest niya, magpayaman, pero hindi niya pinili yon. Siya ay nag-commit sa something larger. Ano yung something larger? To help the kids of his Aita community, to help his culture kung saan siya lumaki. Okay? So, ayan. So, next is yung, sabi nga natin, nagbibigay yung culture ng conscience. So, halimbawa sa atin, itong mga lumad, killings, so, marami nakiisa dito. So, bakit? Kasi nga, nafe-feel natin na mali yung ginagawa sa kanila. So, bilang mga Pilipino, tayo ay pinalaki na mapagmahal sa kapwa. So, yon pag nakikita natin na parang inaapi yung kapwa natin, so parang masakit sa atin yun. Kaya, it gives us a conscience to actually agree to stop these killings. Okay? Next, causes of cultural change. Siyempre, yung kultura, hindi naman yan na parang hindi nagbabago. Of course, through time, it changes. Now, what are the causes of these changes? We have discovery, we have invention, cultural diffusion, colonization, and revolution or rebellion. So, we have 5 causes of cultural change. So, let's have discovery and invention. So, maraming nalilito dito. So, now, let's differentiate the two. When we say discovery, this is the initial awareness of something that is existing already but formerly unobserved. Ibig sabihin, ito, nahanap mo lang siya, discovery. Pero dati na siyang nandun. It's just that nakatago siya. Nung nahanap mo siya, na-discover mo siya. Okay? That's why it refers to the process of finding a new place or an object, artifact, or anything previously existed. Okay? Again, you became aware when you found it, but it is existing already. It's just that it's formerly unobserved. Now, when we say invention, invention is a creative mental process of devising. So this is creating and producing something new, novel, or original. Okay? So, ibig sabihin, ito, hindi mo lang siya basta-basta nahanap. Hindi mo talaga siya mahanap kahit saan. So, nagkaroon lang talaga siya, nag-exist lang siya nung ginawa mo siya. So, you cannot find it anywhere. It is not formerly unobserved. Hindi siya nakatago. Wala talaga nag-exist na ganun noon until you created it or invented it. Example, dati, so yung mga tao, hindi pa sila marunong maglaba. Pero, hindi sila marunong maglaba kasi ang alam lang nila, ang nakikita lang nila siguro yung mga ibang tao nung hindi pa nila nalalaman na nag-e-exist yung mga bodies of water, ang ginagawa lang nila is hindi sila naliligo or hindi sila naglalaba. Pero nung halimbawa na lang, nung nakita nila na merong sapa or merong river sila nakita, dun nila natutunang maligo, dun nila natutunang maglaba, okay, kasi na-discover nila na merong body of water na constantly running, okay? So, ibig sabihin, hindi lang nila to na-discover before, but it was already there. Okay? So, nung na-discover nila, of course, nalaman nila yung use nun. So, dati, they are a culture of people na hindi naliligo. Now, naliligo na sila. Okay? So, they take a bath already. Pero, pag sinabi nating invention, etong washing machine, hindi nyo na, kahit libutin nyo yung buong mundo, kung hindi pa na-invento yung washing machine, let's go back in time. Let's use a time machine. So, bumalik tayo sa mundo kung saan wala pang washing machine nun. Okay? So, kahit libutin nyo yung buong mundo, wala kayong mahahanap na random na washing machine na nakatago kahit saan. Okay? Because washing machine is an invention. Okay? So, when washing machines are invented, yung mga tao, hindi na nila kailangan na mano-manong maglaba. So, you could already put your clothes in the washing machine and then put detergent on it, leave it for number of minutes, and then after nun, konting kusot na lang, piga na lang, tas banlaw, tas sampay na, ganun na. So, kumbaga, after the invention of washing machines, it changed culture. Okay? So, hindi na siya yung manual labor. When machines were invented, of course, manual labor has been lessened. Okay? So, that is the difference between discovery and invention. Again, when you say discovery, these are or this is an action wherein you discover things or you find things that are previously existing. It's just that they are unobserved, nakatago sila. So, nahanap mo lang sila. Pero pag sinabi nating invention, ito, hindi mo nahanap. Talagang hindi siya nag exist until sila ay ginawa or na-invent. Next, when we say cultural diffusion, this is a social process wherein cultural traits or social practices from a society or a group to another belonging to the same society or to another through direct contact with each other and exposure to new forms. Okay, so ito ay sa makatuwid, ito ay pagkalat. Okay, kaya siya diffusion eh. In science, when we say diffusion, this is yun nga, the spreading. Okay, pagkalat siya ngayon. So, again, spread of cultural traits. Now, this is whether immediate or gradual. So, pag sinating immediate, pagka galing sa isang tao, isang grupo, bigla, siya kagad, ma-acquire siya agad. Pwede rin naman na through time. Okay? So, hindi kinabukasan kagad, natutunan niya, or hindi kagad next week. So, minsan dekada, minsan century, bago magbago. Okay? So, yun yung tinatawag natin ng cultural diffusion. Pagkalat ng kultura. So, ito yung hawa-hawang pagkalat ng kultura. So, pwede naman na yung diffusion ay from one society or one culture to another society or culture, or pwede na naman na within the culture yung diffusion. Okay? So, we have types of social diffusion or cultural diffusion. You have acculturation, assimilation, amalgamation, and enculturation. So, again, pag sinabi natin diffusion, ito yung pagkalat ng cultural traits or pagkalat ng kultura. So, let's differentiate assimilation versus acculturation. So, when we say assimilation, okay, ang kailangan lang nating tandaan dyan, when we say assimilation, this one is you adopt. Okay? A-D-O-P-T. Adopt. Okay? So, you adopt. Meaning, when you learn or when you acquire a new culture, you entirely change into that culture. So, you forget your original culture. Halimbawa, Pilipino ka. Okay, Pilipino ka. Tapos, ikaw ay pumunta na sa ibang bansa. So, mangyari, kakalimutan mo na entirely yung pagiging Pilipino mo. Tapos, i-adopt mo na yung kultura na yon. Okay? So, ibig sabihin, wala na matitirang traces sa'yo ng pagiging Pilipino. What about acculturation? So, when we say acculturation, this one is acquiring a new culture, okay, but you still retain your original culture. Sabi nga dito, however, they still manage to keep their original culture to some degree. So, let's have examples for assimilation and acculturation. So, ayan nga, pag sinabi nating assimilation, you forget the original culture and adopt, A-D-O-P-T, the new culture completely. Kasi, acculturation naman, when we say acculturation, this one is adapt. A-D-A-P-T. Kasi magkaiba yon. Pag sinabi nating adopt, ito yung kukunin mo yon entirely. Okay? Pag sinabi nating adapt, nag-adjust ka lang. Pero, may nare-retain pa rin sa'yo. Okay? So, for example, we have Bretman Rock, so the baddest, and we have, syempre, si Ryan Bang, and then we have these people. So, let's have these people first. Bretman Rock and Ryan Bang. They show, okay, examples of acculturation, adapting, A-D-A-P-T. Okay, so we have acculturation. So, again, pag sinabi nating acculturation is you acquire a new culture and yet you still retain your old culture. So, makikita natin si Bretman Rock, siya ay syempre naka-base na sa US, nasa Hawaii siya. So, nandun siya sa USA, he acquired the American culture or the United States culture, the Hawaii culture. So, makikita natin, nag-adapt na siya doon. But still, di ba, Ilocano at heart pa rin siya. Marunong pa rin siya mag-Ilocano. He still likes Filipino food, di ba? So, nakikita natin, hindi niya nakalimutan entirely or hindi niya kinalimutan entirely yung pagiging Pilipino or yung pagiging Ilocano, which is his original culture. He just adapted to his new culture, which is, yun nga, yung American culture or Hawaii culture. Next is we have Ryan Bang. So, makikita natin si Ryan Bang, di ba, sa Showtime. Siya ay very, ano na very good in Filipino na eh. He can understand the jokes, he can also throw jokes din. Tapos, yung humor niya, very Filipino na rin. Tapos, matatas na rin siya mag-Filipino. So, nasasakyan niya na rin yung dialogue, 'di na siya madalas na lilito. So, okay na siya, eh. So, ibig sabihin, he also acquired Filipino culture. He also liked, Filipino food. So, makikita natin, 'di ba, nag-adjust na talaga siya. He adjusted well to the Filipino culture. But he still did not forget his original culture, which is Korean culture. So he still knows Korean. He still keeps in touch with his Korean friends and his Korean family. So pumupunta pa rin siya sa Korea time after time. So makikita natin, 'di ba? Acculturation 'yon kasi again silang dalawa, si Bretman Rock and then si Ryan Bang, silang dalawa, they acquired a new culture but still retained their original culture. Now, what about this one? So, this one is an example of assimilation, changing religions, okay? So, when you change your religion, hindi naman pwede na you would still retain your old religion, 'di ba? So, most of the time when you convert religions, you have to change yourself completely. So, halimbawa, ikaw ay isang former atheist tapos ikaw ay nag-convert na into Christianity, say for example, hindi mo pwedeng i-claim yung dati mong claim na I follow the some teachings of the Bible but I still believe that there is no God. Hindi naman pwede 'yon. So when you decide to convert religion, you have to follow the you have to follow everything that in that religion says, okay? So halimbawa, yun nga naging 'di ba nag-convert na yung isang atheist into Christianity. So he has to believe that God is existing already. So hindi na siya pwedeng mag-claim ng gano'n kasi he already converted eh. Okay? So what else? Etong mga Indian, yung mga naniniwala Hinduism. And in Hinduism, they believe in a lot of gods, like 90,000 gods yung pinaniniwalaan nila. So ano na siya, tens of thousands of gods, they believe in that. So when they convert into Christianity, they have to believe in only one God na lang. Di nila pwedeng sabihin na we still believe in 9,000 gods, pero si Jesus yung the best. Di naman pwede rin sabihin na gano'n, okay? So, when you decide to convert religions, of course, you have to forget your old religion, okay? So, that is an example of assimilation. Again, you adopt, okay? So, when you acquire a new culture, you completely believe and immerse in that culture and forget your previous culture, okay? Next, we have amalgamation. When we say amalgamation, this refers to the action or process of uniting or merging cultural concepts, two or more cultural concepts through biological and hereditary fusion. So, anong nangyayari dito? May dalawang culture na pinaghalo sila ngayon. So, naging fusion sila kasi it's either naging mag-asawa yung dalawang galing sa magkaibang culture, halimbawa Pilipino tas Japanese, naghalo sila, naging mag-asawa sila. So, yung anak nila ngayon is fusion ng culture nila, okay? So, you have that as amalgamation. So, example ng amalgamation is yung Chavacano, if you're familiar with song Porke by Maldita. So, yun ay gawa sa Chavacano language na sinasalita sa ating Visayas region and in Zamboanga. So, ito ay fusion ng Spanish plus Filipino. Okay? So, hindi mo pwedeng sabihin na ito ay Spanish, o ito ay Filipino. Okay? These are, or this is a fusion of the two. So, this is a product of amalgamation. Again, fusion, uniting. Kumbaga, sa gatas at kape, pinaghalo yon. Hindi mo pwedeng sabihin yon na ito ay kape, ito ay gatas entirely or 100% because that is a fusion. Okay? So again, Chavacano, Spanish plus Filipino. So example of amalgamation. What about enculturation? So when we say enculturation, this refers to the process of learning the surrounding culture, values, and norms accepted in a particular culture through socialization. So ito ay diffusion or pagkalat ng culture na nangyayari kapag tayo ay inaabsorb natin yung mga bagay na natututunan natin sa paligid natin. Okay? So, halimbawa, kayo ay nag-aaral or kayo ay isang foreign exchange student. So, syempre, dahil foreign exchange student kayo, ang mangyari is ma-absorb nyo yung kultura ng mga nakapaligid sa inyo. Okay? So, kumbaga, isa kayong sponge na na-absorb ninyo yung tubig. So, yung tubig is yung surrounding culture. Yung tinatawag natin na enculturation. So, ang enculturation ay napapalibutan din niya yung assimilation, acculturation, amalgamation. Kasi, hindi naman mangyayari yung mga yon kung hindi mo na kayo na enculturate. Okay? Kasi pag sinabing enculturation, again, you learn about the surrounding culture. Siyempre, bago nyo i-adopt yung culture, kailangan nalaman niyo muna, natutunan niyo muna yung kultura na nakapaligid sa inyo. So, the first step to the other three is through enculturation, okay? Pero yun nga, generally speaking, pag sinabi nating enculturation, this is learning the surrounding practices, surrounding norms, surrounding values, surrounding culture. This is learning them. Pag sinabi nating acculturation naman, a review, pag sinabi nating acculturation, you acquire a new culture or you learn a new culture while retaining your own culture. Pag sinabi naman nating assimilation, this one is acquiring a new culture or learning a new culture and then forgetting your original culture. And amalgamation is a fusion of two or more cultures. So, through hereditary means, or pwede rin naman na through time, naghalo sila. Okay? So, these are all processes or parts of social or cultural diffusion. So, again, cultural diffusion is the spread of cultural practices, cultural traits, and the like. Okay? Next, we have colonization. Ito madali lang to. Pag sinabi natin colonization, so it refers to the invasion and seizure of land. So, kung saan kasama doon yung land, political, and cultural expansion in mind. Siyempre, kapag ka na-colonize yun, susundin na nila yung rules nung colonizer. Okay? So, this mandates the people to adhere to the culture of the colonizers and renounce their old culture before they became a colony. Okay, so ang nangyayari is, bago sila maging colony, kailangan muna nilang tanggalin yung original culture nila. Okay, so susundin nila yung culture ng mga colonizers. Katulad ng, syempre, nangyari dito sa Pilipinas, yung mga ninuno naman natin, 'di ba? Hindi naman sila original na mga Christians. Ang original natin na religion dito sa Pilipinas is of course, we are pagans. O nangyayari ay yung ating mga ninuno, sinasamba nila yung mga Diyos ng langit, Diyos ng dagat, Diyos ng halaman, ng pag-aani, mga ganon. Okay? So, marami din tayong Diyos at Diyosa. So, we have a pantheon. Pero, nung pagdating ng mga Spaniards, which are our colonizers, ang nangyari is they spread Christianity. And syempre, being a colony, Philippines must adhere to Spain's rules and traditions. Kaya, ang nangyari, napalitan yung ating religion through colonization. Ayan, so yun yung example. Okay, next or last rather is revolution and rebellion. So, ano yung pinagkaiba nitong dalawa na to? Pag sinabi natin revolution, this is a widespread movement. Doon pa lang, widespread movement. Okay? So, ibig sabihin, malaki yung scale nito. Pwedeng pang buong bansa or pang buong mundo. Okay? So, it alters social structure. So, binabago niya yung social structure na meron tayo. It alters institutions. Pati yung institutions, binabago niya. So, leadership formation, pati kung sino yung namumuno, pwede rin naman pwedeng mabago through revolution. Classes of society, pwede rin baguhin. Transition of powers of higher ups regardless of the legality. Pwede yun yung usurpation ang nangyayari kapag ka nagkaroon ng revolution. Pwede na paalisin nila yung incumbent na nasa puesto ta's ipalit nila kung sinong gusto nila kasi nga dahil sa revolution or overthrow the government or the current regime. Kadalasan kapag meron tayong revolution, especially in the history or in history, ito yung kadalasan nakikita natin, overthrowing the government or current regime. Okay, revolution is also considered as an important stage in order to transition to the next historical age and change effect. Okay, so makikita naman natin, 'di ba, may iba't iba tayong regime. So, kadalasan yung revolution yung nagme-make way para magbago tayo ng historical age. Okay? So, halimbawa dito sa Pilipinas, meron tayong yun nga, yung martial law or yung dictatorship regime. So, yun. For a long time, yun yung meron tayo sa Pilipinas. Pero, saka lang tayo nagkaroon ng the age of democracy pagkatapos ng people power revolution. Okay? So, makikita natin do'n na pagka nagkaroon ng revolution, meron talagang change na nangyayari sa culture natin ta's nag-e-enter tayo ng susunod na historical age. What about rebellion? When we say rebellion naman, it's also an explicit form of resistance. So, against an oppressive force. But this is not necessarily that it must be, parang hindi siya necessarily na buong bansa ay kasali. Kapagka halimbawa, may union na nagre-rebel against the company. Halimbawa, may yung isang kumpanya hindi maayos yung pasahod, ta's yung mga ano, yung mga tawag nito, yung mga manggagawa ay nagra-rally against the company dun sa pamamalakad ng kumpanya. This may be called as rebellion already, okay? Kasi nga nagre-rebel kayo against an oppressive force. So it is a smaller form of resistance compared to revolution because as we have said, revolution is either nationwide or worldwide. So when we say rebellion, these are um, smaller scale. Okay? Smaller scale. Yun nga, katulad sa example kanina, yung mga manggagawa versus the company. Okay? So, but sometimes it is considered as a preliminary stage before transitioning to a revolution. So, of course, before you achieve the nationwide revolution, you would start from rebellions. Tapos pag madami na yung rebellions na yon, tapos magkakaroon ng parang pag-uusap-usap yung mga factions na nagre-rebel on each side of the country. Magkakaroon sila ngayon ng unified na goal. Ang mangyari, magkakaroon na tayo ng rebellion. Same to what happened during the Spanish regime nung nagkaroon tayo nung um, yung mga Filipinos led an uprising against the Spanish forces kasi nga gusto na nilang paalisin yung mga oppressive Spanish dito sa Pilipinas. Anong nangyari, 'di ba? Hindi naman kagad nationwide yung nangyari na revolution ng Pilipinas. Ano yung nangyari? Nag-rebel muna yung different factions in different parts of the Philippines. Tapos, nung nalaman nila na may iba't ibang uprising sa iba't ibang bahagi ng Pilipinas, tsaka sila bumuo ngayon ng isang malaking organization. Yun nga yung katipunan, okay? Para mag-lead ng revolution sa buong bansa. Pero yun ay nag-start muna sa mga maliliit na rebellion. So, example ng revolution is we have, of course, yun nga, yung EDSA revolution or the people power revolution wherein, yun nga, first, bloodless revolution sa Asia. Ayan, so they overthrew the dictatorship or the dictatorial regime. Okay? So, yun. Pero hindi lahat ng revolution ay political ang motivation or political ang agenda. Some revolutions are different in nature. So this one is scientific in nature. So this is the industrial revolution kung saan dati kasi manual labor lahat. So nung nagkaroon ng industrial revolution, doon na nagkaroon ng machines. So dumami kaliwat kanan yung inventions ng mga machines hanggang sa nagkaroon tayo ng industrial revolution kung saan binago nito yung buong mundo. So this one is a worldwide revolution. So yun nga, binago nila yung yung lumang culture kasi yung lumang culture is manual labor ta's nung nagkaroon ng mga machines, more on automatic, automatic control na. So, the manual labor or manual work was lessened already because of the rise of the machines. So, examples of rebellion, 'di ba? Ito nga, yung mga example nitong rebellion is yung sa mga propaganda ng mga African Americans. Kasi 'di ba dati nagkakaroon sila ng racism, especially in 1940s, 1930s, 1920s sa Amerika. We are not accepted as legitimate part of USA. So they are considered as slaves or people who are actually inferior or inferior from the whites. Okay? So, anong nangyari sa kanila is nagre-rebel sila for them to be acknowledged. So, kaliwat kanan yung mga rebellion ng mga blacks or ng mga African Americans. Yun nga, anong nangyari, dahil dun sa mga rebellions nila, eventually, nagkaroon ng bunga which is yung revolution kung saan sila ay nagsimulang tanggapin na ng society. And another example of rebellion is yun nga, yung mga NPA na meron tayo or New People's Army, hindi naman natin sila mako-consider as revolution kasi hindi naman sila yung parang kumbaga pangbuong bansa na majority ay talagang sumasali sa kanila. So, they are just a small faction. So, sila ay maliit lang naman kung tutuusin compared to the majority of the population. Pero sila ay, yun nga, isang grupo kung saan they are trying to rebel against the authorities because they have some goals that they want to achieve. Okay, so some goals that they want to address. So they are branded as rebels in the society. So they are called as NPAs.